Today we've got Rob Green with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Rob Green. I'm a singer-songwriter from Nottingham. And yeah, I write and perform my own music. And I've been touring and performing my own music for 10 years now, which is like insane. I only realized that today. Yeah, I've been performing and touring my own music. I've released 3 EPs so far. The latest one went to #3 in the iTunes R&B chart and #34 in the iTunes album chart. And then from that, I did a bunch of arena tours and festivals, including Glastonbury and supporting Earth, Wind and Fire and the Whitney Houston Hologram tour just before lockdown. And that is the spiel. That's it.
Yeah.
That's everything there is to know.
Obviously. Interview's over. No more to
Yeah,
come.
bye. You finished.
So I've just realised you said you started 10 years ago. I would have been 7.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe it. Yeah, it's mad. I don't believe it when I say it. It feels like I only started
a decade
ago.
That's a lot of time.
It is. I feel like I should be getting like artist pension or like a Zimmer frame in the post, just for longevity.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
So how did you actually get started making music all those years ago? I'm going to use that all the time now.
Yeah, all those years ago. Well, if you cast your mind back, it was a few days after they invented the wheel. And no, I basically started singing when I was about 5-ish years old. I feel like every time I do an interview, I change what age this is, but I was very young, basically, pre-memory. And my grandma on my mum's side used to make me stand on her coffee table and sing to her. And I used to, sing all the hits, Mary Had a Little Lamb and Spout and Handle and Pour the Kettle or whatever it was, all of that. And I really have just always loved performing. And yeah, from that age, I just kind of started singing. And then I started acting as well at the television workshop in Nottingham when I was about 8 years old. And when my grandma passed away, which was around the time I was 6 years old, I just kind of still carried on with music and was still really, really connected to it. And I think at first it was a way to be connected to her, but I just love music. And my parents loved music and played loads of music when I was growing up. And then music kind of took a different, I'd say when I first started writing music was at school. I was it wasn't first year, so kind of like year 8 age, when all the hormones kick in and life starts getting really complicated. And also, at school, I was like really heavily bullied, like I would say quite heavily bullied every day, at least. And whether that was verbal or physical or whatever. And sort of the drama department and the music department were kind of placed sort of escapes for me, a place to sort of be that wasn't the playground or in a hallway. And I could just kind of be myself. And I started writing poetry because I couldn't play an instrument. Started writing poetry. And then I taught myself the guitar on the internet when I was 15 and started turning those poems into songs. So my first ever songs were just basically musicalized versions of the poems that I'd written. And that was, I probably went way more in depth than I needed to on that question. So that's me. That's how I got started. But yeah, I'd say I first started performing my own music when I was about 18.
Obviously, what you do now is quite different to a musicalized poem, as you said. So what are like the big influences on like your style of music?
So one of the biggest influences for me has been an artist called India Ari. Have you heard of India before?
Not off the top of my head. I'm going to make notes of that one.
Yeah, definitely check her out. She's amazing. India Ari is, I'd say, she sometimes gets billed as like R&B and soul music. Sometimes she gets billed as neo soul. To me, India Ari is more like world music mixed with soul. So she really takes influence from music from all over the world. You can hear instruments that you wouldn't normally hear in a traditional soul or R&B song in India's music. She has an incredible voice, but the thing that I really love the most about her is her lyrics. She really focuses on a sort of like key life themes. I'd say she focuses a lot on like personal development and ambition and relationships. And one of the things that I've always loved about her is that she's so honest. She's so honest in her music, and you can tell that in the stuff that she's written, it's been a way of her processing her life and her experiences. And for me, that was really inspiring, because here was somebody who was quite unapologetically flawed, you know, had challenges and had difficulty, and wasn't trying to make out that everything was easy or simple, but basically highlighted that there was a way through. No matter what your obstacles are, there is a way through, and there is an other side to whatever that thing is. And that was really motivating for me. And yeah, it got me writing. And I'd say as a singer, the inspiration for me, I mean, there's loads, absolutely loads. But one of the most distinctive memories that I have is when my voice was breaking, which was kind of around that year 7, year 8 time. My voice was breaking. I was getting really upset. And I came home one day because a teacher had asked me to sing in class, and my voice had cracked in the middle of me singing, and everyone laughed. But to be fair, it cracked in a funny way. Yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that that's just trauma in it when you're seven, when you're in year 7. So I came home and I was like, oh no, my voice is breaking. I'm not gonna be able to sing the way that I normally sing, you know. And my mum took me into the living room, and she had a record player, and she played me When I Fall in Love by Nat King Cole. And that song, he's got this deep, resonant voice. And it was so deep that in the living room, we had single pane glass. And it was so deep that the glass like started to vibrate on some of the notes. And I was just like, whoa. And my mum was like, when your voice is finished breaking, you'll be able to hit notes like that. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah, can't wait. But and that made me feel better about it. So Nat King Cole is such a good storyteller with his voice, and he doesn't over embellish. He just kind of just is simple and sings the notes and sings the song from a heartfelt place. And yeah, I mean, there's loads of artists, but that's one of my specific memories about voice that I remember being like, oh yeah, that's good. So yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you've done a lot of gigs, like a lot. So what would be like the standout, most memorable gigs you've ever, I guess, attended, done?
Yeah. Oh gosh, the most standout gig that I've ever done. Well, the most standout gig that I've ever attended, as in one that I wasn't playing, was in Nottingham. I went to Rock City to see The Script when they did their first ever album, and I loved that album. Like, I rinsed that album. I learned every single word. That was the first album that I'd ever had where I learned everything I could possibly learn about those songs. And I went to go see them live with my dad, and I sang to every single word, and they were amazing. But everyone in the audience was singing along to every single word. And their single "We Cry" had just kind of hit the charts, and they were really blown away that people knew all of the songs, like not just the single, but like all of the album tracks. I was blown away because I thought, oh, it's just me that's like gone in deep on these lyrics. And everybody was singing them, and it was beautiful. And they were really emotional. Danny, the lead singer, was really emotional. He was just like, I can't believe you all know the music. This is insane, you know. And I think the thing that I loved about that gig like will always be in my memory, is like that was like one of the best gigs I've ever been to. And the reason why was because I like it when the wall disappears between the performer and the audience. I think that some performers like really rely on the wall. They really rely on this idea that like you're over there and I'm here and in a safe place. But I actually don't like that. I prefer to feel connected as possible. And that show really, really felt connected, and it felt so real, you know, it felt really live. And that's really important to me. So probably because of that experience. And the best gig I've ever done,
Yeah.
best gig I've done, what you're learning about me is there's no short answer to anything.
Obviously. There's no problem with that. We all like to ramble.
Yeah. The best gig that I've ever done. Oh, God. Best gig I've ever done. There's so many, really hard to choose. Okay, the one I'm going to pick is the most recent. But there's been, honestly, when I say I love performing, and I'm so lucky that I've had so many gigs that have like changed my life, literally changed my life. Like I've come off stage and gone, I feel like a completely different person now after doing that show. But the most recent one was just before lockdown in March last year. I was on tour doing the Whitney Houston Hologram Arena tour, which was the most futuristic support slot I've ever done in my life. Was basically opening for a hologram of Whitney Houston. And when I did the support, I was like doing like 15-minute sets basically. And then the first show in Glasgow was a show I was really nervous about because I'd never performed in Glasgow before. And well, how do I put this? Scottish venues, like the Scottish people are a people of truth. They either like you or they don't. and there's no middle ground, and they're not going to mince their words, which is something that I really love in any person, but was obviously understandably making me nervous. So I was like, I better be good. Like, these people have come to see Whitney Houston. And if I'm like naff, they'll probably just boo me off stage. So I was nervous about that. But also I had so much going on in my own personal life at the time, just loads and loads of things that were really stressing me out. And I just remember being in my head, just thinking about loads of different things, not really being present at all, worrying about this show, like loads of drama had kicked off the day before this show in my life. And I was just like, oh, and then I went on stage and I just went for it. I just remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to give everything I've got and just escape my real life for about 15 minutes, basically. And the audience were amazing, and they sang with me and they were so responsive to the point where I came off stage and there was a genuine encore. Like, most artists prepare like an encore, and they're going to do it anyway, whether you hopefully you ask for it and it seems genuine, but if you don't, they're going to come back on and play it. I don't really do that because I'm a support act and I don't need to do that. So when it was like a genuine encore and the stage manager was like, bro, have you got another song? Do you want to go back on? Like, I wasn't even aware of the fact that they were asking for more music. So I was like, yeah. And I went back out and I did this medley of songs. And I just remember getting really teary on stage. And I think it was just because it was liberating, and having people be with you in that moment and it be really present is it just gets you out of your head. Like, I spend so much time, far too much time, or I used to anyway, overthinking. And the only time that I don't do that is when I'm performing, because I'm just present. And I realized in that moment on the stage that I hadn't been doing that in my real life. And I came off stage and I went to the foyer to sign EPs and things. And there was a queue like out of the door. And this lady had ran up to the very front of the queue, and she had a Scotland pin in her hand. And she hugged me. Obviously, this is pre-COVID. She hugged me and she said, she was like, "You're an honorary Scotsman now." And she like pinned this badge on me. And she was like, I took a picture with her, which I've got on my Instagram actually. And I was like really emotional, and she went, "You should be so proud of yourself. We had such a good time." I was a bit suspicious at first. I thought, let's see what this English guy's about. But he was like, you were amazing. I was like, thank you. Relief. So it was great. It was a beautiful memory. And like I said, I feel like that was a gig that changed me in a big way.
Understandably, especially if you became a Scotsman off the back of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've changed my passport. No. So it's great.
Oh, you've played Pride a couple times, and would you say the atmosphere there is different? Because obviously with Pride, a lot of people aren't there for music. So would you say the atmosphere of the Pride events is very different to just a normal gig?
Yeah, it's very different. It's very, very different, Pride, and I think it's different for good reasons.
Yeah.
It's different in a good way. In a traditional, like, let's say, festival setup, you know, people are there for music and whatever the entertainment is. But there's not really anything for the individual other than what they go and experience there. What I think is important about Pride is that there's so much there for the individual to be able to go, whether you are an ally or you are within the LGBTQIA plus environment, from those communities, in that environment. You know, there's so much assurance, there's so much positivity. I mean, there's a lot of flirting, let's be real. There's a lot of like positive things that are happening in that space. And to have a space that's public, that is safe and protected and supportive, that's a rare, it's less and less rare, thank goodness. And hopefully it will no longer be rare, bring the future. But
I mean, hopefully we won't need one soon.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is that what Pride is a celebration event, but it wasn't always that, you know. It was, or it was a protest. It was a fight to be seen. Now that we are seen, and more of us are being seen and being understood, both amongst the community and beyond it, the truth of the matter is that Pride is a radical movement, and it still is. So when you're a musician coming to Pride, it would be incredibly arrogant to believe that you being there is the most important thing. It's like, you'd have to, it's a bit of a God complex thing if you think that. So really, you're there to serve the vibe of the event. What I love about Pride is that for me, I get to do my most unapologetic set, in terms of, unapologetic's not the right word. Sometimes when I do a set, I obviously have music that talks about my sexuality and talks about my sort of development as a person. And part of that development as a person has been coming to terms with my own sexuality, and also coming to terms with like my racial identity as well, and things like that. So normally what I do is I kind of spoon feed people up to that. I work my way up to that in the set. In Pride, I can literally just start where I want to be. I can start as fully open and myself without any sussing out needed. Whereas sometimes I'm like, I've got to warm up this audience. I've got to make them like me, and then I'm going to tell them. It's like coming out to the audience every time. Whereas with Pride, I don't have to do that. I can just be 100%. And I think that's great. And Pride is, I don't know, I have nothing but positive memories. I have nothing but, touch wood. Even during lockdown, Pride found a way to go ahead and do the online event. Which is something that I think they should keep, an element of something that's online. And the reason why I say that is I didn't come out until I was 19, but I knew obviously that I was gay. One of the things that was difficult was accessing positive stories and positive testimony that supported basically being gay and coming out, you know. If Pride had been online, you know, in the Stone Age when I was 19, it would have been incredible, you know, to be able to tune in and watch that and just kind of see that there was a community there, especially locally, to be able to see that existed. I genuinely didn't believe that there was a gay community when I was 15. I thought I was literally the only one. So it's like that's like a beacon of hope, and I hope that they keep that. I hope they keep that.
Yeah. So obviously we've spoken a lot about gigs. There weren't many of those last year. I don't know if you noticed. There was a
Yeah.
bit of a lockdown. So how did that actually impact you? Because you couldn't be going out and doing what you'd usually be doing.
Yeah, well, it's the weird one, isn't it? I did actually, so some of my festivals that obviously were supposed to be happening during lockdown got turned into online events. So I had to do them from this room,
Yeah.
and which was unusual. What was unusual about that, of course, was not having a physical audience. So you're kind of, there is an audience and you can see like comments scrolling or whatever, but it's unusual. It's an unusual
Yeah.
thing. You know, at a gig, normally when you're playing, you're not taking in feedback other than like maybe cheering at the end or clapping at the end, but you're not like, I really like this song. It took me ages to learn to not read the comments while I'm playing because it just throws you off massively. It's just like reading it and someone's like, oh my God, are you going to play this song next? And I'm like, oh, I forgot what I'm singing. And then obviously then the gigs kind of stopped.
Yeah.
I did one in-person gig actually in the weird sort of limbo eat out to help out period on the 28th of August, which was Homegrown Festival in Nottingham. I headlined that festival. It was at the Arboretum, and that was amazing. It was so liberating to be part of that. And then you know, it was quiet, and I actually at first really resisted that. I really resisted the quiet. I wanted to be busy. I wanted to be productive. I wanted to stay on top of all my social media and still be doing everything and keeping busy. And I think that was really because I didn't want to accept that it was really happening. And once I'd accepted it, it became a lot easier to look after myself. And I started putting into place things that I'd always avoided putting into place, like well-being practice. I now meditate every morning, and I exercise. I don't exercise as regularly as I know that I would like to, but I do exercise a lot more. And I do a lot more reflecting. And basically, I just live in the present a lot more than I think I was. When I think about how I lived before lockdown, I just think, gosh, like, you were living at a million miles an hour. Like, literally, the only times I actually felt like I slowed down was when I was on stage singing, and then I would come off stage and my life would just kick back into a million miles an hour again. And I just kind of didn't. And now I think about that, I'm like, no wonder you were so knackered, and like, no wonder, like, you were only really fully happy on stage because that was the only place that you were actually just living in the moment. And so bringing some of that attitude into my daily life has made my life a lot more enjoyable day to day. So yeah, it's worked out, I think.
Yeah.
Good things.
I guess when we talk of living in the moment, we're gonna not live in the moment, and sort of like, what plans do you have for, I guess, the near future, like this year, next year?
So, well, because obviously now it's April,
Yeah.
and I am working on a small EP. Just because I was also working on an album, and my album's still sort of in process. But after lockdown, I just kind of felt like I just wanted to do something fresh. I wanted to do something fresh. I really wanted to get creative again. And I managed to get some funding together to put an EP together. I'm working with a really wonderful producer called Glenn Scott, who I met a few years ago. And yeah, I just wanted to create something that was really liberating. And after the year that we've all been through, I think that I looked at my album material and I thought, do I want to record my album material? And I was like, I'm going to park that. I'm actually in a space where I really want to write something in the present, like we've said, and something that allows me to just express how I'm feeling right now, and what I want right now. So yeah, I don't know what it's going to be.
We'll just find out.
But we'll find out, yeah. And I've got some great shows coming up. I mean, I can't announce those yet, but they're going to be being announced very soon. Yeah, I'm doing a few festivals and a few shows, and hopefully a few headline shows as well before the end of the year. So I can't wait. And I'm trying to think if I'm allowed to say, I can say this. I'm putting together a band for myself, because prior to this, I've been performing just me and a guitar and a loop pedal, which has been wonderful. But I'm just ready to get close to people again and have people on stage with me. So yeah, I'm just excited to sort of take my music to sort of a new level for me and be challenged in a new way. So yeah, wish me luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I guess is my final question. If you had like one dream, no matter how crazy, how ridiculous, how big, that you could do with your music act, what would it be?
I think my biggest musical dream in this moment, is I would love to do a headline tour. I know that sounds quite tame, probably, because I obviously eventually one day would probably love to do like arena tours and win a Grammy and do all these things. But really, for me, just that, like being able to do a headline show and sell that out and have people, the fan base that I've been building around the country over the past 10 years, to be able to actually put a show together that brings them all into one tour, would just be so exciting. I'd love to do that, and just thinking about it makes me excited. So
I can say,
yeah. So yeah, so that would be a dream come true for me. Yeah. That's hopefully the next big dream.
And I guess I've just got this. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me. Thanks. It's been loads of fun.
Yes.